The announcement came on a Sunday evening, after dinner. The scent of my mother's roast chicken still hung in the air, a familiar comfort. My parents sat me down on the living room couch, their faces arranged in expressions of grave sincerity. It was the kind of coordinated seriousness that always made a child's stomach clench. "Claire, honey," my father began, leaning forward, his hands clasped between his knees. "Your mother and I have been talking. We have so much love in this house, so much to give, and we think it's time we shared that love with someone who hasn't been as fortunate as us." My mother, Susan, picked up the thread, her voice filled with a self-congratulatory piety I would come to know all too well. "There are so many children in the world who don't have a loving home. Sweetie, we're going to adopt a little girl. You're going to have a sister. A sister." The word sounded foreign, an object from a storybook that had no place in the real world of my life. They framed it as a gift to me, a playmate, a companion. But even at 8 years old, I could sense the subtext. This wasn't about me. This was about them. It was a performance of their own virtue, a grand gesture of nobility. They weren't just getting a daughter. They were acquiring a testament to their own goodness. I was no longer the sole recipient of their love. I was now a prop in their passion play of charity. I nodded, because that's what good daughters do. I smiled, because that was expected. But a small, cold knot was already forming in the pit of my stomach. The sun in my universe was about to be eclipsed. Her name was Chloe. She was 7, a year younger than me, small and waif-like with enormous, dark eyes that seemed to absorb all the light in the room. When she arrived, she clung to the social worker's hand, a picture of fragile terror. My parents melted. They knelt, cooing at her, their voices surby with a tenderness I hadn't heard directed at me in weeks. For the first few days, Chloe was a whisper. She spoke in monosyllables. She'd sit in her new room, the guest room, now painted a vibrant pink. She had apparently requested Dan just stare at the walls. I tried to be a sister. I offered her my favorite dolls. I invited her to play in my treehouse. She would just look at me with those huge, empty eyes and shake her head. The quiet act didn't last long. It was just a reconnaissance mission. She was mapping the terrain, identifying the power brokers. And she learned quickly. The first time I saw the real Chloe was about a week in. My mom had bought us both ice cream. I, in my excitement, accidentally knocked mine onto the floor. I started to cry, the way any 8-year-old would. Instantly, Chloe's eyes welled up with huge, theatrical tears. "Oh, Mommy," she wailed, her voice trembling. "Claire's so sad. It reminds me of when we never had enough food." My mother's attention snapped from me to Chloe in an instant. My spilled ice cream was forgotten. She swooped in, hugging Chloe tightly. "Oh, you poor, sweet baby," she murmured. "Don't you worry. You'll always have enough here. Always." My mother then turned to me. Her expression hardened. "Claire, for heaven's sake. It's just ice cream. Look what you've done. You've upset Chloe." I stood there, stunned into silence. My genuine, childish sadness had been hijacked, twisted, and used as a tool. I watched Chloe over my mother's shoulder, through her fake sobs. One of her eyes opened just a sliver, and she looked right at me. There was no sadness in that eye. There was only the cold, sharp glint of victory. The shadow had found its power source. The first major battle in a war one didn't even know I was fighting was a battle over a bicycle. For my 9th birthday, there was only one thing I wanted: a shimmering, cherry red Schwinn with a white basket and streamers on the handlebars. I had talked about it for months. I'd left pictures from the catalog on the refrigerator. I dreamed about it. My father had all but promised it to me, ruffling my hair and saying, "We'll see what the birthday fairy brings." On the morning of my birthday, I flew downstairs, my heart pounding with anticipation. There, in the middle of the living room, was the bike. It was perfect, more beautiful than the picture. I ran towards it, my hands outstretched. "Happy birthday, sweetie," my mother said. But she wasn't looking at me. She was looking at Chloe, who was standing beside the bike. A beatific smile on her face. My father cleared his throat. "Claire," he said, with that same tone of strained sincerity, "we know how much you wanted this bike. But Chloe, well, she's never had a new bike before. She's never really had a proper birthday. We thought it would mean so much to her, to help her make up for some of the things she's missed." They gave my birthday present to her. On my birthday, I stared at them, my vision blurring. I looked at the bike, my dream bike, and then at Chloe, who was already running her hands over the shiny red frame as if it had always been hers. "You'll get lots of turns," my mother added brightly, as if that would fix it. "We'll all share." But we never did. It became Chloe's bike. I was allowed to ride it sometimes, a guest on my own stolen dream. That day, I didn't just lose a bicycle. I lost the fundamental belief that my desires, my feelings, my very own birthday mattered. I was no longer a daughter to be celebrated. I was a resource to be redistributed for Chloe's benefit. The bike wasn't an isolated incident. It was the blueprint. My childhood became a long montage of these small, soul-crushing concessions. Christmas became an exercise in lopsided accounting. I would get a sweater and a book. Chloe would get the dollhouse, the video game console, the tablet. The excuse was always the same, whispered to me as if it were a state secret. Her childhood was so deprived. "Claire, we have to make it up to her." My childhood, apparently, was now a debt to be paid to hers. Family outings were dictated by her whims. I loved Chuck E. Cheese, the cacophony of games, the terrible pizza, the animatronic bandit was heaven to a 10-year-old. But Chloe, with a quiver in her lip, would claim the loud noises scared her. So we'd go to McDonald's, again and again, because, as my mother would say with an exasperated sigh, "Can't you just be the bigger person? Claire, Chloe needs more quiet. She needs more attention." My report cards, once a source of pride, became a source of tension. My straight A's were met with a cursory, "That's nice, honey." But Chloe's C+, achieved after weeks of my mother hovering over her, was celebrated with a cake and a family movie night. My achievements were expected. Hers were miracles. I learned to be quiet. I learned to want less. I learned that my feelings were an inconvenience, my needs secondary. The mantra of the house, spoken and unspoken, was Chloe needs more. It was carved into the walls, served with every meal, tucked into bed with me every night. I was living in a home that had been completely emotionally rezoned to accommodate its newest resident, and I was the old landmark they were slowly, quietly, tearing down. Hope is a stubborn, irrational thing. Even after 8 years of being a ghost in my own life, a small, foolish part of me held out hope for my 16th birthday. A sweet 16. It felt significant. A milestone they couldn't possibly ignore or outsource. I didn't ask for much. No big, lavish party. Just a simple gathering with my few loyal friends at my favorite local restaurant, Johnny's Pizza. It was a cozy, family-run place that smelled of garlic and oregano, and they had a back room you could reserve. I brought it up with my parents a month in advance. To my shock, they agreed. Of course, honey, my mother said, barely looking up from her magazine. A sweet 16 is special. For a few weeks, I let myself believe it. I felt a flicker of the girl from the photograph on the lawn. I picked out a new dress. I sent invitations. I was going to have one day, just one day that was unequivocally mine. Of course, Chloe wouldn't allow it. In the weeks leading up to the party, her behavior became a masterclass in passive-aggressive sabotage. She would have sudden, unexplained crying fits. She'd complain of phantom headaches whenever I tried to discuss party details with my mom. She accidentally spilled juice on the dress I'd bought, forcing a frantic trip to the mall for a less perfect replacement. She was a vortex of need, sucking all the air and attention out of the room, ensuring that even in the planning stages, my birthday was still all about her. I gritted my teeth and pushed through, clinging to the promise of the party itself. I just had to get there. The back room at Johnny's was filled with my friends. The lights were dim, balloons bobbed against the ceiling, and for an hour, it was perfect. I felt seen. I felt normal. I was laughing, eating pizza, opening small, thoughtful gifts from people who actually knew me. My parents and Chloe sat at the head of the table, my mother beaming as if she'd orchestrated a diplomatic triumph. Then came the cake. The lights went down, and my mom and dad carried it in. A large sheet cake blazing with 16 candles. Everyone started singing happy birthday. I closed my eyes, made a wish, a desperate, futile wish for things to be different, and blew out the candles. The lights came up. My mom sliced into the cake and put the first piece on a plate for me, and I saw it. The cake was a deep, dark brown. It was chocolate. Rich, decadent, devil's food chocolate. There is only one food in the world that I truly, viscerally hate. Chocolate cake. It's a silly, arbitrary thing, but it's my thing. Everyone who knows me knows it. I am a vanilla, strawberry, or lemon girl. Always have been. Chloe, on the other hand, adored chocolate cake. It was her absolute favorite. I stared at the slice in front of me. It felt like a practical joke. "Mom," I said, my voice small. "The cake. It's chocolate." My mother smiled, a bright, dismissive smile. "I know, honey. We decided, since your birthday is so close to Chloe's, next month, we would make this a special pre-birthday treat for her. Isn't that a nice idea? A way to share your celebration." Sharing. The word echoed in the silent space that had just been filled with song. Sharing my birthday. Sharing my cake. Sharing my one day. And something inside me, a cord that had been stretched taut for 8 long years, finally snapped. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. The room fell silent. "No," I said, my voice shaking with a rage that felt ancient. "No, it is not a nice idea. It is my 16th birthday. My party. My cake. Can I not have one thing? Just one day? One single thing that isn't about her?" Every head turned to me. My friends looked shocked. My father looked mortified. And Chloe? Chloe began to cry. Not quiet sobs, but loud, gut-wrenching wails, as if I had physically struck her. "I didn't mean it," she cried, burying her face in my mother's side. "I told them to get vanilla. I did. I didn't want to ruin her birthday. It was a lie, of course. A perfect, devastating lie. My mother's face, which had been confused, now hardened into a familiar mask of righteous indignation. She turned on me, her voice a furious whisper. "Claire, look what you've done. You have humiliated this family in front of your friends. You apologize to your sister right now. Apologize." She wanted me to apologize for wanting my own birthday. Cake on my own birthday. I looked at my mother's angry face, my father's cowardice, and Chloe's triumphant, hidden smirk. And I felt nothing. The anger evaporated, replaced by a profound, chilling clarity. It was over. I was done. "No," I said, my voice suddenly calm. I picked up my purse. "I'm not apologizing." And I turned and walked out. I walked out of my own sweet 16 party, leaving them all sitting there with a chocolate cake I couldn't eat, and a family I could no longer stand. As the cool night air hit my face, I wasn't sad. I was relieved. It wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. The walk home from Johnny's was the first steps of my new life. The fight that followed my return home was epic, but I was numb to it. Their words couldn't touch me anymore. I had emotionally seceded from the union. From that night on, I was no longer their daughter. I was a spy, an operative behind enemy lines. Gathering the resources for my extraction, my life became a meticulously planned mission. I took on extra shifts at the coffee shop where I worked, a small, independent place called the Daily Grind. The smell of burnt espresso and steamed milk became the scent of my liberation. Every latte I made, every table I wiped down, was a step closer to freedom. I opened a secret savings account at a bank across town, funneling every dollar I earned into it. Watching the balance grow was the only thing that brought me joy. Academics became my weapon. I wasn't just studying for good grades anymore. I was studying for scholarships. Every A was a shield, every successful exam a key. I spent my lunch hours in the guidance counselor's office. Mrs. Peterson, a woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude, became my unwitting co-conspirator. She saw a driven kid, and she helped me navigate the labyrinth of financial aid forms and application essays without ever asking why I was so desperate to leave. My friends, the ones who had witnessed the cake disaster, formed a silent circle of support around me. They understood. They covered for me when I was working late. They were my real family. For 2 years, I lived a double life. At home, I was quiet, compliant, a model of polite indifference. I did my chores. I ate the meals they put in front of me. I faded so far into the background they barely noticed I was there. They mistook my silence for submission. They had no idea it was the calm before my own personal storm. The day I turned 18 was a Tuesday. It was my D-Day. My mother was completely engrossed in planning Chloe's high school graduation party, an affair that was quickly approaching the scale of a royal wedding. It was the perfect cover. I had packed my belongings in secret over the course of a month, stashing boxes in my friend's garage. All that was left were 2 suitcases. My friend Sarah pulled up in her dad's pickup truck at exactly 10 a.m. I walked my suitcases out the front door. My mother was on the phone with a caterer, arguing about the color of the napkins for Chloe's party. She saw me through the window and put her hand over the receiver. "Where are you going with those?" she asked, her voice laced with annoyance, not concern. "I'm moving out," I said simply. She blinked, confused. "Moving out? To where?" "Don't be ridiculous. Claire, I don't have time for this. I have an apartment near campus," I said. "My scholarship covers most of it. I'm leaving. The reality finally seemed to dawn on her, but there was no sadness, no plea for me to stay. There was only anger. After everything we've done for you, she hissed. This is the thanks we get. You're just going to walk out. Everything you've done for me. I almost laughed. You gave me a roof over my head. Thank you. I appreciate it. But I'm 18 now. I'm done. I didn't wait for a reply. I loaded my bags into the truck, got in, and didn't look back. As we drove away, I didn't feel the triumphant elation I had expected. I just felt a vast, quiet, and profound sense of peace. The shadow was finally behind me. I was driving into the sun. 5 years can be a lifetime. In 5 years, I graduated college with honors, landed a great job as a financial analyst, and built a life that was stable, peaceful, and entirely my own. My apartment was a sanctuary of vanilla-scented candles and books stacked on every surface. I was in a healthy, loving relationship with a man named Ben, who knew my whole story and loved me not in spite of it, but because of the strength it had given me. The silence from my family had been absolute. I sent them a change of address card once, as a formality. They never used it. Then, one rainy Thursday afternoon, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I almost ignored it. Hello? A choked, sobbing sound from the other end. Claire. Oh, Claire. It's Mom. I froze, my hand tightening around my phone. 5 years of silence, and she opens with tears. The performance had begun. I miss you so much, baby, she wept. Your father and I, we just talk about you all the time. Can we please see you? Please. There's something we need to talk to you about. I knew it was a trap. I knew it wasn't about missing me, but a cold, calculating curiosity bloomed in my chest. After all these years, what could they possibly want? All right, I said, my voice even. We can meet for coffee. We met at a sterile, neutral coffee shop halfway between my office and their home. They had aged. My father looked tired. His shoulders slumped. My mother had the same tense energy, but it was frayed around the edges. The small talk was excruciating. They asked about my job in vague terms. I asked about their health. It was a dance of strangers. Then, after about 10 minutes of this verbal ballet, my mother got to the point. She reached across the table and took my hand. Her skin was dry. Claire, she said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. We're so proud of you. You're so successful. You've done so well for yourself. Thank you, I said, waiting for the other shoe to drop. The thing is, my father chimed in, looking at his cup. Chloe, well, she's had a bit of a tough time. She dropped out of community college. She's working part-time, but it's hard for her. And there it was. The real reason. Her 21st birthday is coming up. My mother said, her eyes pleading. And there's one thing she wants more than anything in the world. A car. A safe, reliable car. We found a beautiful used BMW. It would change everything. For her. Give her the fresh start she needs. She finally looked me in the eye. We don't have the money, Claire. We were hoping, since you're doing so well, you could help us. For your sister. A BMW. For the girl who couldn't hold down a job or finish a single semester of college. After 5 years of silence, they had crawled out of the woodwork to ask me to finance another monument to their favoritism. The sheer, unmitigated gall of it was breathtaking. The old Claire would have been crushed. The old Claire would have felt the familiar sting of being seen only as a resource. But I wasn't the old Claire. A slow, genuine smile spread across my face. It was the first real emotion I had shown them. They mistook it for affection. Of course, I said, my voice smooth as silk. I'd be happy to help. For Chloe. Relief washed over their faces. It was so potent it was almost comical. They started gushing, thanking me, telling me what a good person I was. I felt nothing but the cold, clean hum of a perfectly formed plan clicking into place in my mind. A plan that had been germinating in the dark for over a decade. I don't like doing wire transfers, I said, leaning back in my chair. It's so impersonal. How about I send you the cash? It'll feel more like a real gift. Oh, Claire, you don't have to. My mother started. I insist. I said, 15,000, right? I'll send it by courier next week. That evening, I didn't go to my bank. I went to a different kind of financial institution. Through a series of discreet, arm's-length inquiries, the kind you learn how to make when you spend your days analyzing complex, sometimes shady, financial instruments. I found a source, a specialist. 2 days later, a plain brown box arrived at my office. Inside was $15,000 in the most beautiful, high-quality counterfeit bills I had ever seen. They were crisp. The watermarks were perfect. The texture was almost indistinguishable from the real thing. Almost. They were props. Movie-quality fakes. Perfect for a grand performance. I packed the cash into a fancy gift box, tied it with a big, celebratory bow, and sent it via a bonded courier to my parents' house. I included a simple card. For Chloe. Hope this gives you the fresh start you deserve. Love, Claire. Then, I waited. I knew my family. I knew Chloe. Giving her a lump sum of untraceable cash was like giving a pyromaniac a book of matches. In a fireworks factory, the BMW was a pipe dream. Chloe had no patience, no foresight. She had only impulse. And I knew just where that impulse would take her. The state line was only a 40-minute drive away, and just across it was a massive, glittering casino resort, a place that had always been a siren song for her. 3 days later, my phone lit up with a news alert from a TV station. In the next state, woman arrested at Monarch Casino for attempting to pass counterfeit bills. I clicked the link, and there she was. A grainy mugshot of Chloe, her face puffy from crying, her eyes wide with disbelief. The article was short. She had tried to buy $5,000 worth of chips at a high-stakes blackjack table with the fake money. The dealer, trained for exactly this, spotted it immediately. Security was called. She was arrested on the spot and charged with felony attempted fraud. The trap had been sprung. It was so much better than just saying no. Saying no would have made me the villain in their story. The bitter, ungrateful daughter. This was so much cleaner. I didn't get her arrested. Her own greed, her own impulsivity, the very traits my parents had cultivated in her for 2 decades had done it for her. I had simply provided the stage and the props. She had written and performed the final act all by herself. The next day, while my parents were presumably scrambling to find a bail bondsman and a lawyer, draining their retirement accounts to clean up a mess of their own making, I took a personal day. I drove to hours up the coast to a luxury spa I'd always wanted to visit. I spent the day wrapped in a fluffy white robe, getting a deep tissue massage that worked out knots I didn't even know I had. I sat in a sauna until all the residual tension melted away. I ate a ridiculously expensive salad by an infinity pool overlooking the Pacific Ocean. My phone buzzed, of course. Frantic, hysterical voicemails from my mother. Accusations, threats, tears. I listened to the first 10 seconds of one, then deleted them all without hearing the rest. It was just noise. The desperate, fading signal from a distant, dying star. It had nothing to do with me anymore. I had bought my peace, and the price was a box of fake money and a well-deserved weekend of self-care. It's been a year since the rest. Chloe took a plea deal. She got probation and a hefty fine, which my parents are still paying off. The BMW, of course, never materialized. Our silence has resumed, but this time it feels permanent. Final. I still have that photograph on my desk, the one of the gap-toothed girl on the lawn. I look at it differently now. I used to see her as a victim, a ghost of what was lost. But now, I see a survivor. She's the one who learned to be quiet, to be watchful, to plan. She's the one who got me out. They say living well is the best revenge. I used to think that was a hollow platitude, but now I understand. My revenge isn't the fact that they are miserable. My revenge is that I am not. My revenge is waking up next to a man who loves me, in a home that feels safe. It's excelling at a career I built myself. It's being able to eat a slice of vanilla cake on my birthday without a single dark thought. I was born an only child, and in the end, that's what I became again. I am not defined by the family that tried to erase me. I am defined by my own choices, my own strength, my own peace. The shadow is gone, and the sunlight, that warm, constant, dependable sunlight, is all my own. And it is more than enough.